And it's lonely out in space on this timeless flight. But I think it's going to be a long, long time till touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man I am at home. I'm a Rocket City man, a Trash Panda man. So let's start the show.
Twitchy Dolphin Media presents Let's Get To. It's baseball from sea to shining sea by the team that brings you home. And now, your host, James Christopher.
And we have a slam-packed episode of Let's Get To for you today. So slammed, in fact, that I'm going to get to the episode just like we made the jump to hyperspace. That's right, we've got a very spacey episode for you today. And when you start out by visiting the Rocket City Trash Pandas, that makes some sense. Now, despite growing up in Space City, I was never really a space guy. While friends were thinking about flying a shuttle or digging dinosaurs, I was reading about the largest dolphin in the world, which is in fact a killer whale. That's right, killer whale. So in Spielberg parlance, I'll take Jaws over Jurassic Park and Close Encounters. I'm not so much into planetariums, but I can spend all day at an aquarium. So while I don't necessarily care about the ins and outs of NASA, I'm a big fan of the space program in general. It's so ingrained in the American identity to want to get out and to explore, to bravely go where no one has gone before. I should patent that. I love how excited it makes people that I love, like my father-in-law, like Roxanne, who you'll see on our show a little bit later, like Let's Get To contributors Emily and the Hitter Sports. They get fired up about it, and it makes me fired up. Because in the world today, we need that excitement. For practical and emotional reasons, we need to keep reaching for the stars, both literally and proverbially. So much good can come out of it, not the least of which is a way to boost national morale by endeavoring to do things never done before and to do them in the name of peaceful exploration. And as for this particular episode, we'll be exploring the Rocket City Trash Pandas, NASA in Alabama, and more space talk, so stay with us.
The St. Louis team, we have who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
That's what I want to find out. I want you to tell me the names of the fellas on the St. Louis team.
I'm telling you, who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
Do you know the fellas' names?
Yes.
Well, then who's playing first?
Yes.
I mean, the fellas'
Who's on
base.
first? The Let's Get To team of the week.
Who?
Now, I've heard it a million times. Somebody asked me, what team are you going to see? And I'll answer with teams like the Sod Poodles, the Space Cowboys, or the Yard Goats. And then they'll be in chuckle and they'll look at me and go, I'm sorry, who now? Now, for normals, i.e. those people not like me and obsessed with minor league baseball, a name like the Rocket City Trash Pandas could have caused an audible snicker. They could have been trashed on Twitter for being a silly name. And then, after a while, the fans would fall in love with it. That's actually exactly how it happened with the Sod Poodles. But it seems as if these pesky raccoons were a hit from the start. Maybe it's because they're so cute when they eat with their little hands, you know? That's my raccoon impression, everyone. They're not all winners. Now, originally scheduled to open in 2020, Toyota Field still has that new car smell. Everything is so shiny and new. There's a game today. At least that's what the raccoon inside told us, and people are amped for some Rocket City baseball. Now, Toyota Field is built to be a mecca for baseball, continuing a rich tradition of the sport in this area. And they really created an amazing space for the community to come and enjoy the greatest game ever invented. It's a beautiful space for a beautiful game, and it's got everything you want in a ballpark. It's state-of-the-art, easy to move around with extra wide concourses and plenty of places for you to just post up and watch. And I got one of the best ballpark ice creams I've ever had, so already we're winning. Now, the first thing that stands out is the branding of the team. Designed by Brandios, it's unique, diverse, and really populates every aspect of the ballpark. Now, what I love most about the look is it feels aspirational to me. It's celebrating being smart, the whole science, technology, engineering thing. I love that aspect of the brand because it really feels refreshing. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, but the logo has such a positive vibe to it. It's the kind of look that looks great on a jersey, on a t-shirt, pretty much anywhere. Now, speaking of t-shirts, the team store, y'all. Whew. This merch variety here was excellent. A variety from really fun to really classy leaves a little something for just about everyone, unlike those raccoons in the great outdoors, the ones who made John Candy clean up the stuff. Now, the people behind the Trash Pandas are the real heart of the team, and people come from everywhere on a quest to bring a top-notch baseball experience to Rocket City. We talked to Aaron Cheris, the Trash Pandas media relations coordinator, how he ended up in the Madison Huntsville area to watch some baseball and to cover some baseball and just basically be, in baseball.
Yeah, it's definitely a unique change of pace from anything I could have imagined growing up. I grew up on Long Island in New York, a Mets fan. Went to SUNY Albany for school, graduated early with the dream of working for a baseball team. And I probably sent out 1 million applications. And in 2016, I heard back from one of them. The then AAA Colorado Springs Sky Sox offered me an internship for the 2016 season. So I headed out there for that season, and ever since 2016, it's gotten progressively bigger and better each year. I was with the Sky Sox in 16. Then I went down south for the first time to the then Gwinnett Braves in 2017.
Okay.
Then moved to the Birmingham Barons in 2018. Then from Birmingham, I went up from Birmingham to White Sox Double. I went to Charlotte, which is the White Sox AAA. So that was cool to kind of experience that move with most of the players in 2019.
Oh, yeah.
Was going to be there heading into 2020 in Charlotte. And then obviously the pandemic stopped sports for a while. So at that point, I had to go back to Long Island with family for a little bit. And I was actually working at a school on Long Island, a private K-8 school on Long Island that a neighbor had helped me get the job because I just needed to get back out of the house, get back on my feet like so many people were. So I was there for about 8 months, and then I got a call from a mutual friend saying that this weird new team outside in the Huntsville area, the Trash Pandas, was hiring. Would I be interested? And had a few interviews and moved down to Huntsville, Alabama about 3 weeks before the team's first game in 2021, and have been loving it ever since.
Now, the Pandas were supposed to debut in 2020, but as we know, that wasn't the best year for anyone, I guess. I don't know. Now, I wondered how the momentum that had built up in the community before the pandemic with the fans and the Rocket City staff, how that would persist after getting everyone excited, only to have the inaugural season punted.
They made sure to keep all the staff on board as best they could. They used this brand new ballpark with like high school games and showcases and all sorts of other non-baseball events, because from what everybody here has told me, they went from being a baseball team staff to pretty much an event staff to keep this ballpark up and running, to keep the lights on in 2020. And then by the time I got here in 2021, when it was clear that the season was finally going to start, it was just a love affair at first sight. I mean, we sold out our first game. We've been leading the Southern League in attendance ever since I've been here. And it's just been, I've never seen a community embrace a team like this community has embraced the Trash Pandas.
Now, being an Astros fan, I was curious as to how much being close to NASA would drive its brand identity. For the Houston team, the importance of space has ebbed and flowed. Remember when the old Astros owner wanted to call them the Houston Diesels, change the name, and give them a train theme? Yeah, me too.
I mean, as the Rocket City Trash Pandas,
right.
It's central to our identity. I mean, our logo, our mascot is a raccoon in a trash can spaceship. I mean, it's central to everything we do around here. Whenever a player, we had just had a player yesterday get promoted to the majors, Colton Ingram. He's been here since 21, and then yesterday he just got called up to the majors for the first time. So whenever a former Trash Panda gets called up to the majors, they get launched to the league. So it's it's the space, the NASA is everything. I mean, we bring the players over to the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, which is about 15 minutes from here. We did a tour with them. We're wearing NASA specialty or space-themed jerseys in a couple weeks. We've done that every year, and I mean, and a lot of the people here obviously work for NASA or for one of those defense companies, and it's central to everything we do, and we really lean into it.
Now, the ballpark just pops with so much energy, and there's so much to see and do outside of just the baseball that's going on. You can see how hard you can throw, maybe even play a little cornhole, and eat from a wide variety of food and meal trucks. Did I mention the ice cream? The third rail of minor league baseball, theme nights. The Trash Pandas have a bunch of the nights remaining for the rest of the year, including Art Night, Space Night, Dance Team Night, and Huntsville Havoc Night, which is dedicated to the local hockey team. You're starting to see a lot of that in baseball, where minor league hockey and minor league baseball are cross-promoting. I'm here for it. You can find information about all of that stuff on the website. Highly recommend checking it out. Now, we asked Aaron about the role alternate identities and specialty gear will play for the Trash Pandas this year.
We do a bunch of specialty jersey auctions this year. We're doing 5 of them. And then we already did an Armed Forces one, a Star Wars one. And then later I mentioned we have a Space Night and a Huntsville Stars throwback night. So those are always very popular. It gives the team a different look. And then you'll definitely see the crowd kind of lean into it with, like when we did Huntsville Stars Night, we see a lot of people with vintage Huntsville Stars gear coming to the ballpark. And I mean, it's always fun to see the team take a different look, and also just for the fans to kind of embrace those separate identities for a day or two.
Now, Aaron's a great guy, and he's doing a great job representing this team, even if he did swing and miss on the Godfather question.
But I haven't seen either one of them.
You should go watch The Godfather. Seriously, if you haven't seen it, again, as soon as this episode's over, run, don't walk. Now, we talked new MLB rules and one change that he thinks needs to be made.
I think that the runner on second in extra innings, they need to give it like an inning or two, I think. I would say if you want to do that in like the 11th or 12th inning. Maybe give them another inning or two before you get right into that. I mean, I see why they did it. We've had it in the minors for a long time now, and it's very effective in getting games over quickly.
Yeah.
And a little side story to that is my first year in Colorado Springs, maybe my 10th game that I ever worked, was a game that ended up going 18 innings on a Saturday night where the temperature at first pitch was about 53 degrees. So you can imagine what it was like 18 innings later. So I see the point of that. And that was one of those things that was cool to experience once and then never do again. But I think in the majors, you maybe need to give it an inning or two before you get into that. And I like how they're not doing it for the playoffs.
Now, our last little random question for him. If you could take one player, Ohtani or Ruth, on your team, but the caveat is they get equal access to everything. Ruth gets to grow up playing baseball in the 2000s like Ohtani did, or Ohtani has to jump back into the 1930s. Who would you pick?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, I feel like I have to say Shohei Ohtani here, because what he's doing right now is absolutely, and then we saw it last night watching the Angels game. It's just absolutely incredible. And then especially being a part of the Angels organization here as their affiliate and seeing our guys go up and play with him, and just the way he's embraced those guys. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if I saw Babe Ruth live, I'd feel differently. But I mean, getting to see what Shohei Ohtani is doing right now is just absolutely unbelievable.
Now, the time from first pitch to the end of the game was really so quick that it feels like I didn't get a chance to actually soak it all in. It's a great brand, it's a great ballpark, and everyone involved, from employees to fans, have a sense of ownership of the team. This is their ball club. A high school kid was chatting me up while we were shooting, and he told me that the thing he always tells people when he's in those little icebreakers, that his claim to fame so far in life was that he got to play a game on the field before the actual Trash Pandas did. That's because Rocket City took care of local baseball during the pandemic. It's just another example of how warm this entire enterprise really is. The Trash Pandas have become a touchstone for the people in the Huntsville, Madison area. And as the sun set, I was bummed to leave. This was a big bucket list ballpark for us, and it's just a bummer that we won't be back for a while. But we will be back. So until then, y'all stay trashy, Pandas. We'll see you soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, please adjust your scorecards. We have a special guest in the lineup.
Now, when people think of NASA and space, they likely think of Houston in Florida. But the National Aeronautics and Space Association is spread out over several installations across the country. In fact, without Huntsville, Alabama, NASA wouldn't even get off the ground. It's the site of the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, and we were excited to talk to Pat Ammons about all things spacey in Huntsville.
That position at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, which is home to Space Camp. We are also the official visitor center for NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center here in Huntsville.
Now, I know what happens at the Johnson Space Center, and we all know that the launches happen in Florida. So what exactly goes on at the National Space and Rocket Center?
Well, NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center is where a lot of the major propulsion work for NASA is done. The Space Launch System Office is managed out of Marshall, which of course is the big rocket that just launched us back to the moon and will ultimately be the rocket that will put human beings, Americans, back on the moon, hopefully in the next several years. So a lot of really important work that's done out of Marshall Space Flight Center, including the Payload Operations Integration Center, where all the science work that's being done aboard the International Space Station is managed out of Marshall. So many other really important projects are done there. And so as their visitor center, we have a lot of the information about the work that's being done today, as well as what's been done in the past and some of the things that they're working on for the future for both NASA, but also other commercial space industries as well.
With a new interest in space, both public and privately, I was curious if the new energy level had been reinvigorated across the board.
Oh, absolutely. We can feel the energy all the time. We, with the space, the Artemis 1 launch took place at about 12:30 in the morning, and we had about 700 people here watching.
Wow, okay.
Underneath our big National Historic Landmark Saturn V. So we had the hall full of people in the middle of the night. So that just goes to show just sort of the level of enthusiasm, both as a community, but also just in general that people have about space exploration. It's always something going on between, what NASA's doing, what a lot of the commercial space flight companies are doing. People are all tuned into SpaceX and Blue Origin and so many of the others, United Launch Alliance, which are all very heavily involved in going to space, all the time. And now, after the shuttle program, I think a lot of people said, oh gosh, NASA closed. Well, NASA never closed. NASA's been doing a lot of really incredible work. Just launched the James Webb Space Telescope. And oh my gosh, this is a literally universe changing experience where images are coming back to us daily now that are showing us more than we've ever known about our universe and beyond. So a lot of really exciting things. And we feel that every day. Our space camp programs are sold out and have been for months for the summer, as well as some of our other programs. We have actually 4 camp programs here. Space is the oldest, but Space Camp's been going on for 41 years this summer. We have more than 1 million graduates that have come through our programs. We have an aviation program here, a robotics program, and our recent addition is cyber, because a lot of what we're really doing here is workforce development. And it's really critical that kids today know that there are really amazing, exciting careers out there. And part of what we're doing is giving them tools to go explore those.
I wanted her to help explain to people who might not care about space why they should. What does it do for the normal person who's working the 9 to 5 and not tying themselves to a rocket to go into space?
Well, you and I are speaking right now because of all of that. Yeah, you're someplace else, and you and I are on a virtual call, all made possible because of satellite technology and things that didn't exist without space exploration. Our phones, just literally from our medical care to our day-to-day life, everything that we do is touched by space exploration. And, when we get these kids in here, they're 10, 11, 15 years old. They know they love space, but they don't really know where to take that passion. And when you can direct that, when you can show them that there is something really profound that they can be part of, and that they're part of it as a team, of a group of people who are working together and not just as individuals, it's amazing what we can accomplish. And the things that we have on display here at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center are very much a testimony to that.
And just like as a film teacher, I don't expect every single student to become a filmmaker, I hope they all at least grow to appreciate and support the art form. So with that in mind, I asked her about Space Camp, how much of it's about grooming future astronauts and members of NASA, but also about helping to grow the next generation of space exploration supporters.
Absolutely. I was having this conversation earlier today, actually, with someone who we're inducting into the Space Camp Hall of Fame this summer. He actually started weeping when I talked to him about this very subject because it's so important to him. He's actually a space communicator. And so just talking about the value that this, because going to space is expensive and it's
Right.
hard. And so sometimes people lose sight of why we should make that kind of investment. But it truly does expand our horizons and expands our world in ways that we can't even imagine. So having people, even if they don't grow up to be the astronaut that they think they want to be when they're 10, or they're not the
Right.
maybe they discover, hey, I'm not really great in math. That doesn't mean that they can't really be part of something that is bigger than they could ever have imagined on their own, and that it's really important to support that both politically, financially, and every other way so that we can continue to look beyond our horizons and explore things that we don't even at this time know even exist yet. So we can only do that as long as we keep going and we keep financing and funding these projects.
Now, the focus of our show, Traveling for Baseball, means we also want to see the rest of the country, what else those communities have to offer. So a trip to Rocket City brings a unique chance to visit the Space and Rocket Center. I asked about the relationship between the center and the ball team.
Well, the Trash Panda Stadium is literally about 5 to 10 minutes from here.
Okay.
We're both on the same major interstate system, 565, which is the spur that comes into Huntsville, into the Rocket City. So once you see your game and you come in and you go straight to the stadium, perhaps you're going to have a great time. It's a beautiful stadium. It's just a really great place to watch a game. I've had the pleasure of doing so myself, and it's just it's warm and friendly, and it's fun, and yes, absolutely, they have one of the best names
They really
in the
do.
history of baseball, and voted on by the community, by the way. Of course, paying homage to, I think, Guardians of the Galaxy and the Trash Panda.
I'm sure they want it to be a loose connection. Dear Disney, it's a loose connection.
Loose.
Don't worry about it. Right.
Super
Loose.
super
Yeah.
loose. Only paying tribute,
Yeah.
artistic license, so to speak. But yeah, fun name, just a great spirit, great community of people working in that ball team, and just 5-10 minutes down the road is the U.S. Space and Rocket Center. And if you've never been to Huntsville, your mind will be blown as you drive up and you see a full-scale model of the Saturn V rocket.
Oh, wow.
That's the original moon rocket. It is 363 feet tall. So from miles away, you could see this enormous monument to the American space exploration and space accomplishment, because that is the rocket that took Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin and many others to the moon 50 plus years ago now. So
Yeah.
that's part of our collection. We also have the National Historic Landmark Saturn V on display. We have the Apollo 16 capsule that went to the moon and came back. A lot of times people ask us, hey, did that fly? Generally speaking, if it lifted off the ground, until SpaceX and others started landing rockets, those rockets landed in an ocean somewhere.
Right.
But today we are have on display not just the history, and we have lots of that on display, but we also have a lot of things that are really looking to the future of space exploration too, with an exhibit that we call Dare to Explore: Frontiers of Space. And that showed we have a SpaceX suit that Chris Dombrowski, who is a former
that's cool.
space camp counselor, wore as part of the Inspiration 4 mission, all civilian mission to space, which was in September of 2021. So many other really fun things to see and do. Great place to bring kids, because there's nothing. Every day we see our little pint-sized astronauts here running around in their little white flight suits, and it's just a great place to inspire kids. We have an amazing planetarium, literally world-class planetarium, and a team that puts together every day shows from using the latest elements from the the Webb Telescope and many others to create interactive programming. It's not just some plug and play show. It's literally a live show that we do for every single guest that comes through the door and chooses to go to our planetarium. So just literally, mind-boggling in terms of an exhibit space, but also, just a fun way to spend the day.
So I just want to thank Pat for coming on the show. I really recommend checking out all of the NASA spaces, pun intended, in Huntsville, Alabama. It's an impressive and really inspiring experience.
Ladies and gentlemen, please adjust your scorecards. We have a special guest in the lineup.
All right, so we're back here on Let's Get To as we continue to talk about not just the Rocket City Trash Pandas, but space, the final frontier.
The final frontier.
And I'm here with one of my very dear friends, Roxanne Thurman, who is, of course, we work together, again, a very dear friend of mine, but also an engineer.
I am an engineer.
So tell me a little bit about, first of all, what got you into science?
Oh my gosh. I used to take stuff apart, the old school magnifying glass on the ground, trying to melt the little Barbie dolls.
What's like killing ants? That's homicidal.
A little bit, yeah. So I could have gone either way, the sociopath or the engineer.
And
I
we're
think
off
I
and
chose
running.
well.
Yeah, I think you did.
And I absolutely love just questions of science and wondering, and still like the kid kind of vibe of looking at the stars and going, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So yeah.
So that was it. Also, Star Trek. We're obviously wearing Star Trek uniforms on purpose. I'm a captain.
You are. You are an executive. I am a lieutenant commander, science.
Yeah.
Lieutenant commander. So I think you technically outrank me today.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
As
Well,
it
that's
should
not
be.
always a given.
Not always. It's actually not. By the way, I need a day off next week. No, but I'm very influenced by movies, driven by movies. What about Star Trek, both the show and the movies that kind of drove you or helped guide you into the career you went into?
Well, first of all, Gene Roddenbarry is a genius, a visionary. He would always be invited to that dinner
the
table
5 people
game.
table?
Yeah. He would make my list every single time.
Lucas would not be on mine. There you go.
He would or he
No,
wouldn't?
no.
Oh, good choice.
Well, unless I had to yell at him for stuff.
But I just think the fact that he had the vision in the 60s to create something as long-lasting as it has, and some of the technology that's been parallel or mirrored that's come out of that.
Yeah.
And to me, he was the first to take that science fiction and blend it with the humanities of what aches the human heart, what thrills the human hearts, along with the science.
Yeah.
So to me, it was like the perfect combination of resonated with me as a human, a religious person, a scientist, adventure, cool stuff.
But that is what makes it matter, right? You can have all the gee whiz science stuff,
Yeah.
but if we don't care about them as humans, then the stories fade.
Yeah, and how did the technology further develop the humanity, and what came from the humanity that developed the technology?
I completely agree. And there's a million Star Trek knockoffs that no one cares about.
Nope.
But we care about Star Trek because it did resonate with us at a different level
Yeah.
other than spaceships are cool. I
Yeah.
mean, spaceships are cool, but before we get to why you're on the show, I have a question for you. I didn't know I was going to ask. No, it's not a trick question. But you mentioned being also a person of faith. How do you rationalize? Because some people can't rationalize the two, science and faith. I mean, I can, but do you find that do you understand that argument that some people that are really scientific therefore feel like they don't need to know who God is?
Wow. No, I did know, friends out there, that I was going to be asked that kind of question. You asked that question of a PhD theologian or a Hawking kind of guy. But no, we'll give you the Roxanne answer. I think they're totally complementary. I think one makes you wonder about the other. And I think the second you say this is science or this is faith, you have shut down half of yourself. When you can answer those questions together or be in awe of something that you don't understand, that's the beginning of science and the beginning of faith. So it's the same thing that draws both forward.
I don't think a theologian could have answered that any better than you. Look at that. No, that was a great answer. And evolution, for example, doesn't disprove God. Like all of that stuff.
No, it absolutely does not. It does lend itself to a complex and wondrous God.
Yeah.
who loved us enough to give us science, and Gene Roddenbarry.
So let's talk about what kind of one of the things that prompted us. Of course, we're covering the trash pandas, and they are. We've actually had somebody on the show as well from NASA.
Did you say trash pandas?
They're the Rocket City trash pandas.
Okay, can I have a little more background on trash pandas?
So, trash panda is a loving sort of nickname for a raccoon.
Okay.
And the mascot is a raccoon that's flying in a spaceship, which I think might also be a reference to Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes, love it.
But the Rocket City part comes from it being Huntsville, Alabama, which is where one of the missile test sites is for NASA and stuff. But one of the things that I knew I wanted to bring you on for this show was we're getting interested in space again. I remember in the 80s when I was a kid, a Houston kid, we were interested in space. Why is it important that we still care about space?
Wow, there's so many venues to talk about this. I think it harkens back, honestly, when we think about, just travel. If you think about the people who came across the oceans way back, 1400s, 1500s, I wonder what they thought. Like if they were as at much wonder about what was out there as we are today on literally this next frontier. Mm-hmm. That human heartbeat, what's out there kind of vibe. I think another reason we're interested in space is we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. We don't know, honestly, the trajectory of Mother Earth. Are we going to step up and fix it, or are we going to hell in a handbasket? So continuing the species, which is innate in us, don't doing that.
So you're looking at it from we might not be able to avoid Mad Max. We need to get off.
We need to keep our options open. That's what a sentient being, and that's what's placed in us as a species, survival, right? So at least we need to be thinking about it.
And so for you, the goals are much more tangible than just these sort of theoretical exploration is very important to like the American spirit. You're also thinking, stuff might not get turned around. We need to GTFO.
Well, we also, wonder what's out there. There's something out there. The enormity of space, the enormity of time and distance. There's something else cool out there, and I wonder about it. But I'm also, I guess, long in the tooth enough to know that it's going to have to be driven financially by something. And one of the biggest things holding us back right now is that dollar amount to get to where we want to go, because it's so incredibly expensive just to do anything.
And it does seem it ebbs and flows too politically. Like I remember when W was in office, he kind of repeated JFK's thing by saying, we're going to go to Mars. I haven't figured it out yet. It does seem like with each passing administration and economic situation, we lose steam and then make it up. But it feels like with all the privatization,
we're in a new paradigm now.
Yeah. So what do you think about all of this, like Elon Musk going to space?
I think it's fantastic. All of his quirks and all the things going around, but I think he's, revolutionized this idea of space, commercialized this idea of space, trying to cut down on the literally the dollar amount it takes to fly 1 kilogram of something somewhere, because that's the battle that we're fighting now in order to build the space station or the moon station or get to Mars, which I follow on Instagram, the Mars, all the rovers and stuff.
I do too, yeah.
I get so enthralled. I'll just watch it. That is just amazing from a generation. You and I'm a little bit older than you, but I remember my parents talking about landing on the moon and how insane that was. And I wonder now if my dad or my grandparents could see, holy crap, we're on freaking Mars.
Yes. I remember even this summer when they did when SpaceX brought the rocket up and brought it down.
That's
like
huge.
Getting teary-eyed. Because again, it reminded me again, it's also like tragic as it was, being piled into the cafeteria for Challenger's launch. And I always liked the fact that whenever there was a tragedy, it didn't stop. Like you just honor the sacrifice and you keep moving.
And there's a lot more sacrifices to go, if we're going to be honest, to get to Mars and get to this spacecraft. There's a lot of dues to pay.
Yeah, and I hope that we stay brave and diligent in that and not let a couple of those things, because I feel like the people that are going to sacrifice themselves in this mission are going to want that mission to continue.
Oh, absolutely. And they willingly go into that.
I guess last question then, we'll get geopolitical since we've gotten theological. Are we worried at all with how integral Russia is to keeping the International Space Station going? And I don't know if you know this, but our relations with them are deteriorating by the day. Yeah, there's things happening.
Is there? Okay.
Are we worried about that, or do you feel like it's time for us to kind of just?
I don't worry about that. I think that at the heart of the Russia Space Agency and the Chinese Space Agency and our NASA, I think it's freaking scientists who are working together. I think the scientists are going to lead the way, honestly, and they're going to tell the geopolitical, all those folks, hey, get it in line because we got some cool stuff happening. So I don't worry because I think it's the scientists who are on the backside talking to each other and working things out and doing cool stuff. I have hope for
you really do.
Humanity.
You're a very optimistic person.
I am very
This must
optimistic.
be why I adore you so much.
Oh, back at ya.
So taking Star Trek out of it. But I mean, what is another like can you watch a sci-fi movie like say Armageddon that has no real basis in science and still enjoy it, or do you click off the minute it gets too out there?
I'm not a fun person to watch those movies with because I'm like, well, that just defied all the laws of physics, probability, mathematics, common sense, reasoning. I don't know. And so I challenge it, but I think that's fun to do, you know?
Yeah.
Of course, you know, my favorite science movie, The Martian.
The Martian.
Best science movie ever.
Yeah.
Thank you. Who did that movie?
Did Ridley Scott direct it? Matt Damon.
Well, I mean, yeah. Matt Damon.
Also, I think the best solo performance, better than Tom Hanks in Castaway. I think he was great.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I hope Matt Damon sees this one day. Hero,
actually,
inspiring.
For so many reasons, I hope Matt Damon sees this and shares it with his friends and
Yay,
financiers and
Matt Damon fan from Austin, Texas.
And all those things. Roxanne, thank you so much for jumping on.
Wait, I have a question.
Okay.
I love baseball.
Yeah.
We've had so many conversations about baseball. You know, I love the mathematics behind it. I truly do. Tell me why you love it. It's not math, is it?
No, although I do like certain mathematical elements of the game. I like that the base paths are so meticulous. They're 90 feet between each other.
Lots of geometry. Go math teachers.
But yet the outfield is completely can be however you want it to be. I kind of dig the sort of...
Ooh, the dichotomy of life in that.
Kind of the mismatch
structure
of
and chaos.
I do. I think the game is beautiful. I think there's a lot more going on than... I think people who say baseball's boring, I don't think get it. I don't think they fully understand it. And I think my favorite part of being in a game is those times between pitches when you really can have, as cliche as it sounds, you can have conversations you can't have anywhere else.
That's true. So you don't like the new pitch count and the timer clock?
No, I really don't. I get it. I understand, I guess, why they're doing it, but you know, especially because you and I are going to go to a Round Rock game at the end of the summer, and the tickets aren't going to be cheap. Do we want to be there for 2 hours or 3?
How much beer are we having?
That's what I'm saying. It definitely is impacted by the amount of beer we're going to have.
I like the gamesmanship on the pitch time clock. There's all sorts of head games going on in there.
Well, baseball's full of head games no matter what. But you know what I always think of? If you remember back in the 88 World Series, Kirk Gibson came off the bench on one leg and won the game. But that at-bat takes forever because that at-bat can't happen today because he would have been called out on strikes based on the pitch clock.
Yeah. See, I want the suspense. I want to go really deep for 10 minutes into...
I do too. I mean, I hate it. Yeah. I want to cut myself, but yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. Anytime you want to talk Star Trek, science...
Let's do it.
Or Moneyball, I'm your guy.
There you go.
Raiders of the Lost Diamond, digging into baseball's past.
And welcome to Raiders of the Lost Diamond. It's time to get to Alabama. And we're not going to roll tide, and we're not looking for Forrest. We're reaching for a different set of stars. Now, while Huntsville, Alabama is often known for its role in exploring the stars, including getting Leah Thompson to space, it's also hosted a team of terrestrial stars beginning in 1985. Now, the 85 stars featured future A's greats Terry Steinbach, Jose Canseco, who's a big Emily Nyman fan, aren't we all? Jose would go on to win the league MVP. He hit .318 and injected himself with the most steroids, apparently enough to kill an actual horse. Now, the following year saw the return of Steinbach, and then another roid head in Mark McGuire. But The success didn't come as much as the Needles did in 1985. Now in 87, the team saw sightings of such stars as Scott Brocious and then another Canseco brother. The Stars completed another successful quest for a championship in 1994 with a team that boasted Jason Giambi. I think he also got in trouble for steroids. It's weird. Other future Major League stars to appear for the A's affiliate in Huntsville include Scott Spezio, Miguel Tejada, and Tim Hudson in 1998. Now, after the 98 season, the A's moved their AA affiliation to Midland, Texas, becoming the Midland Rockhounds, and then the Brewers came to Huntsville. The 2000 Stars sported future four-time All-Star pitcher Ben Sheets, while Huntsville hauled in their third and final Southern League title in 2001. Now, after winning the Western Division playoffs, the Stars shared the title with the Eastern Division champion, the Jacksonville Suns. Stars and Suns? Suns or Stars? Weird. When the league championship series was canceled following the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Now, some big league stars to show up in Huntsville during the Brewers era include J.J. Hardy, Prince Fielder, Nelson Cruz, Ryan Braun, Astro Michael Brantley, Lorenzo Cain, Chris Davis, and Astro Martin Maldonado, and then Mitch Haniger in 2014. Now, following the 2014 season, a new ownership group bought the Stars and moved them to Biloxi, Mississippi, where they became the AA team, the Biloxi Shuckers, which we featured on Let's Get To You in our 2022 season.
And now, on to close it out, the right-hander from Houston, Texas, James Christopher.
All right, Sprocket, so I need you to help me end the show. And so what'll happen is I'll talk about what a good time I had, and then I'll say something about peanuts and Cracker Jack, and then you'll say, let's get to along with me. You got it? Oh, perfect. Okay, so this should be pretty easy. You think one take? Okay, I'm into it. Let's do this thing. So that does wrap up this episode of Let's Get To. We were out at Toyota Field, home of your and his Rocket City Trash Pandas. We had a great time. This might be a perfect minor league baseball experience. They were celebrating the impact of the Negro Leagues with the 9-night. The stadium was rocking. The food was great. The beer was fun. It was just a blast. So as we start moving our way into July and into August, there's plenty of baseball left. Get out to the ballpark. Get you some peanuts, get you some Cracker Jack, and most importantly, you ready? Let's get to. Where were you, dude? You see, if I would have gotten a German Shepherd for this segment, nailed it. Let's Get To, presented by Twitchy Dolphin Media. Creative Director, Jessica Bybee-Jedgetts. Written, directed, and hosted by James Christopher. Executive Producers, Andy Tomcheson and Scott McIntyre. Produced by Andrew Nelson, Eric Mertens, Jess Canaster. Commentary by Gary C. Warren, Emily Nyman, Paul Caputo, Ed Rivera. Music by Grace Usselman, On Holiday. All trademarks of the teams covered on this episode are the property of those teams. Look for more content from Twitchy Dolphin Media and the Let's Get To family, including Go-Go Astros, Fanboy 76, Yell Fight Suey, Jerseyed, and Unboxed. This has been Let's Get To, baseball from sea to shining sea by the folks who bring you home.